Hey everyone, this is lesson 17, Sega Celebrities and Nintendo's Overconfidence. What I want you to do is write for discussion from your previous lesson. What were some of Sega's business strategies in the American marketplace? Specifically, you could talk about how they were targeting Nintendo in their advertisements, okay? So look at the last few slides from your last lesson. Jot some things down. I look forward to reading them when you submit your work. So, Michael Katz, now the president of Sega, wants to create a library of instantly recognizable titles. So he wants to make games that people will be familiar with. Nintendo was dominating translating games from arcade machines to home consoles. So Sega, in order to counteract their success, would be to contract athletes and celebrities and create games with their names and images. Okay. Under Katz's direction, Sega creates Pat Riley's basketball, Arnold Palmer golf, Buster Douglas boxing, and Joe Montana football, as you can see in the corner here. Joe Montana football became the ultimate example. We paid $1.7 million up front to Joe Montana. I fought to convince Nakayama and the Japanese president that we needed Montana, and I gave Joe Montana the check. So here's Joe Montana here, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. All right. Katz convinced Nakayama to sign a 5-year agreement with the 49er quarterback so they could use his likeness on their football games for the next 5 years. Sega had the star of their game. Now they needed the game itself, so they basically paid the athlete before they even had the game created. Sega didn't have a large U.S. game production facility at the time. All of their stuff was being created in Japan and shipped over. And Sega of Japan had never designed a football game, mostly because Japan does not play American football, right? So a small software company known as Mediagenic had a game under development. Mediagenic was formerly known as Activision. Okay. According to the team working on the project, the game was approximately 30% finished, but executives promised Sega the game could be finished by October of that year. Okay, so Katz purchases the game. We didn't know about all the internal turmoil that was going on at Mediagenic. Basically, they deceived us over a period of 4 to 5 months that the game was proceeding on schedule. We were naive and irresponsible. The game wasn't very far along at all, but we didn't discover this until about September, 1 month before the due date. The only way they were going to get the game out near Christmas would be to find another game that was either mostly finished or completely finished and convert it. So, they bail on this agreement with Mediagenics because their football game was not created in time. Sega turns to EA, or Electronic Arts, who had been publishing John Madden Football for the last 4 years, a game that's still around today. EA president Trip Hawkins agrees to help Sega, and they release Joe Montana Football in January of 1990. Joe Montana helps establish Sega's reputation among sports fans, and Genesis is the leading video game company for sports simulation. Joe Montana earned $2.5 to $3.5 million in royalties over the course of the 5-year agreement. Other games, such as Michael Jackson's Moonwalker, also used to make a big impression in the media. Not only did the game contain synthesized versions of his music, remember we talked about Sega always having great sound and music in their games, it also had Jackson and chorus lines of villains dancing to choreographed moves that looked like they belonged on MTV, which you could see here. The game ends with Jackson turning into a robotic alter ego as he battles a nefarious criminal named Mr. Big, and I'll show you some of that, or I'll provide you with the link at the end. Unaffected and overconfident, the executive team at Nintendo greeted the news about Genesis with indifference. They did not care. Looking back years later, several employees offered various explanations as to why they did not take the Sega Genesis seriously. The first Sega Genesis games did not leave an overwhelming impression. People weren't impressed with the first line of games that came out for Sega, so Nintendo felt, their stuff isn't that good anyway, we don't have to worry about them. The second was that the Mega Drive sales figures were so low that Genesis didn't seem like that much of a threat. So Nintendo over in Japan says, well, if the Mega Drive isn't even selling here, we don't have to worry about this in America at all. And third, Nintendo was so successful that they were a little full of themselves. They believed no one could beat them. Also, Nintendo's research and development team number one were designing the newest handheld gaming system called the Game Boy. This is the same team that created Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros., Metroid, and Game & Watch, so they are very successful at what they do. They were very distracted by this new project of the Nintendo Game Boy and the financial success of the NES and its games. No one within Nintendo was concerned about Sega in the slightest bit. At the same time, Nintendo had just passed two new milestones, okay? In 1989, Nintendo was releasing games such as Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Batman and Metal Gear that went on to be great successes. Nintendo sold 17 million copies of Super Mario Bros. 3, a game that we learned about a little while back. And Nintendo's year-end sales topped $2.3 billion, and the company's licensing program was growing. Third-party licensees were allowed to publish only 5 games per year with Nintendo. So if you purchase an agreement with them, you're an outside company, you're allowed to make 5 games. Konami had published a long line of best-selling games, including Castlevania, Blades of Steel, Double Dribble, and Life Force. And the 5 games per year clause was actually holding them back from making more money because these 5 games, or 4 games, I should say, were great. Another third-party publisher, Acclaim, one of my favorites, also asked for permission to publish more games. Acclaim was based right out of here in Long Island. They're a game company run by Greg Fishbach. They created games such as Double Dragon, Iron Sword, and several WWF games like WrestleMania. Minoru Arakawa, president of Nintendo, found a way around the rule. Konami and Acclaim received second licenses so that they can publish additional 5 games under a different brand name. Acclaim adopts the name LJN, and Konami adopts the name Ultra. Under the Ultra label, Konami sold approximately 4 million copies of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Ultra went on to develop Metal Gear, a long-running series of games which is still being created today. However, the Ultra license was only for the Nintendo Entertainment System, and the NES was coming to an end of its shelf life. Even while earning $3.34 billion and 48 million Nintendo Entertainment Systems were sold across the nation, across the world actually, Nintendo executives knew that they could not control the market with obsolete hardware, meaning the NES was only 8-bit. The Sega Genesis was 16-bit. So they needed to catch up in terms of processing power. Work had already begun on their brand new 16-bit gaming console that they hoped would help them shut competitors out of the market. Okay, these are some links here if you want to pause and visit these. All right, these are going to show you some of the games we learned about today. And don't forget to submit your work. Thanks.